I moved into the house after the divorce. It was a fixer-upper, tucked into the pines at the edge of Black Hollow, a forgotten mining town that barely made the map. The place was quiet, too quiet, and that was exactly what I wanted. No neighbors for miles, just endless forest and the occasional howl of something feral echoing through the trees. The mine sat behind the house like a buried secret. Just a jagged tear in the earth, framed by rusting supports and a half-collapsed wooden sign that read, Harrow Vein, EST 1886. Nobody had worked it in a century, and from what I could tell, most folks pretended it didn't exist. Even the realtor had brushed it off like it was nothing. Oh, that old thing? Completely sealed. Local lore, nothing more. But it wasn't sealed. I found the gap on my third night there. I was out back, burning some scrap wood, trying to chase away the evening chill. The wind was sharp, smelled like rain and rust. That's when I heard it, a whisper, soft and warbling, almost like the breeze had learned how to talk. Speak. I froze. It had come from the mine. At first, I told myself it was just the wind tunneling through the old shafts. But the whisper came again, clearer this time, deliberate. Speak to us. I should have left it alone. I should have turned around, gone inside, and locked the door. But something in that voice, something familiar and urgent, like it already knew me. I stepped closer to the mine, the crunch of gravel under my boots sounding too loud in the still air. I peered into the darkness, and it was as if the mine breathed back at me, cold, damp, endless. Then I made the mistake. I whispered back. Who's there? The moment the words left my lips, a pressure struck the back of my eyes. Sharp. Immediate. My vision doubled. Warmth slid down my cheeks. I reached up, thinking it was sweat, but my fingers came away slick with blood. My eyes were bleeding. And the voices, they didn't stop. They never stopped. I stumbled back from the mine, half blind and gasping. The voices weren't just in the air anymore, they were inside me, threading through my thoughts like smoke in a locked room. Whispers coiled behind every blink, muttering secrets in a language I didn't recognize. My vision swam red with each word. Closer now, we hear you. I spent the night on the bathroom floor with the lights off. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember the dreams. They were deep. I was walking through the mine's tunnels, but they weren't just dirt and rock, they were lined with something that pulsed, like veins. Faces pressed through the walls, stretching out toward me, mouths moving in time with the whispers. One of them looked like my father. Another like a woman I'd never met but somehow recognized. I woke up screaming. That morning, every mirror in the house was cracked. Not shattered, just spidered, like something had pressed against the glass from the inside. My phone screen too. Even the stainless steel on the kettle had a perfect fingerprint dent, one I hadn't left. And then came the scratches. They appeared on the walls. Tiny gouges in the plaster, always in groups of 3. At first, they clustered near the back door, the one that faced the mine. But by noon, they were in the hallway. The bedroom. The kitchen. Following me. The whispers didn't fade in the daylight. If anything, they got bolder. Down here. Down deeper. Your words woke us. I tried calling for help, but my phone just buzzed with static. When I held it to my ear, the whispers were in the line, chanting in time with the pulse in my temples. I tossed it across the room. It landed face down. And then rang. I let it ring 5 times before I picked it up. There was no caller ID. Just silence on the other end, until I heard it. My voice. Whispering back to me. I didn't remember saying the words, but there they were, my voice, whispering things I didn't understand. They came before you. They're beneath us still. Their mouths never closed. My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I threw it again, harder this time. It didn't make a sound when it hit the wall. Just slid down like something was cradling it. I didn't go outside that day. Couldn't. Every window showed something slightly off. Like the trees were leaning in closer. Like the mine in the backyard had grown somehow, wider, darker. The kind of dark that looked hungry. At dusk, the lights started to flicker. Not all at once, just slowly, one by one. Every bulb dimmed like it was being strangled. And then, in the hallway near the coat closet, the bulb burst. Not from heat. From something inside it. Glass everywhere. And in the brief flash of the break, I saw movement. Just a flicker, a long, pale arm withdrawing through the ceiling vent. Too long. Joints all wrong. The closet door creaked open behind me. I didn't look. I couldn't. I just ran to the living room and slammed the door behind me. I shoved the couch against it like that would stop whatever was in there. I stayed awake the entire night. The whispers were louder now, constant and overlapping. Male voices. Female voices. A child's giggle. Sometimes I could almost understand them. Speak again, unlock the path, let us through. At 3:33 a.m., every clock in the house reset. I hadn't set them that way. I sat in the center of the living room with all the lights on, surrounded by salt and candles. Not because I believed it would help, but because I didn't know what else to do. And then, out of the silence, I heard the front door knob turn. The knob turned once. Then again. Slow. Testing. I didn't move. Just sat frozen in the middle of that ring of salt like a terrified child playing pretend. The whispers quieted, all at once, as if whatever was outside needed to listen. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps. Deliberate. Not forceful, but confident, like whoever was out there already knew I'd answer eventually. I held my breath. Another knock. This time softer. And then a voice. But it wasn't the whispers this time. It was me. My voice. From just the other side of the door. Let me in. I can't describe the feeling that followed. It was like my bones were trying to leave my body. My lungs refused to work right. Because I knew that voice. I'd heard it on voicemails, old videos. It was mine. But wrong, flat, cold, like someone had practiced saying my words without understanding them. I didn't answer. The door creaked slightly, as if under pressure. And then it spoke again, quieter. Sadder. Please. I'm so cold. That's when the salt line broke. Not from me. Not from any movement. It just scattered. As if something had walked through it without caring. One by one, the candles hissed out. The lights overhead died in a blink. Total silence. Then, footsteps. Heavy. Coming from inside the house. But the door never opened. I realized it too late. Whatever was out there never needed the door. It was already in. The footsteps circled me, slow and deliberate. I couldn't see anything, not even my own hands in the dark. The silence was dense, the kind that presses against your ears like deep water. Then the floor creaked behind me. And another voice whispered right at the base of my skull. Thank you for opening the way. I spun, swinging wildly with the broken leg of a chair I'd grabbed from the floor. It hit nothing, just air and the smell of wet earth, like something had tunneled up from beneath the house. A low thrum began to build under my feet. Faint at first. Then stronger. A vibration, like the heartbeat of something buried far below. The floorboards trembled. Dust rose from the cracks. And then I heard the sound that would never leave me. Scratching. From beneath the floor. Hundreds of fingers, clawing up from below. Thin, frantic scrapes. Tiny, desperate whispers rising with them. We remember, we remember. I backed toward the fireplace, heart hammering, until my heel hit something soft. I looked down. A shoe. Just one. Old, leather, covered in dust. And next to it, another. And another. All of them different sizes. Styles. Eras. Like someone had left them there. Or like something had taken them. The whispers turned to laughter, giddy, eager. Then I saw the first crack split the wood in front of me. Long and jagged. The boards peeled back, not shattered, but opened, like a wound. Fingers emerged first. Thin. Elongated. Skin like bruised paper. Then eyes. Dozens. Watching me from the crawlspace beneath the house. And they all spoke in perfect unison. You spoke. Now you listen. I ran. I didn't know where, I just ran. Down the hallway, past the broken light fixtures and the clawed-up walls, deeper into the house that suddenly felt wrong. Like it wasn't mine anymore. Like it never had been. The whispers followed me, rising and falling like breath. My own voice, mimicked over and over, distorted, echoing through the vents, the walls, the very air. You opened it. You belong here now. I slammed the bedroom door behind me, pushed the dresser in front of it. But the moment I turned around, I realized something awful. The window was gone. Not broken. Just gone. Wall where glass should have been, as if the house was stitching itself closed behind me. The mirror in the corner flickered. Not from light, there was no light, but something pulsed in it, like a heartbeat behind glass. I tried not to look. Tried. But the moment I did, I saw them. The watchers. Rows of faces stacked behind my reflection, staring. Unmoving. No mouths. No eyes. Just smooth flesh where features should have been. And still, I could feel them seeing me. Drinking in every movement. I screamed. The mirror cracked. Not from the sound, but like it had cracked in sympathy. And from somewhere in the walls, the mind whispered. You heard us once. Speak again. Let us through. Something brushed my ankle. I looked down. A child's hand was reaching from under the bed. Pale. Dirt-caked. Fingers twitching slightly like it was dreaming with its body. Then the voice. Help us. And for the first time, it didn't sound threatening. I didn't move. The hand under the bed trembled, then curled into a fist. I knelt, slowly, and reached out. Help us. The voice wasn't in my head anymore. It was in the walls. Surrounding me. Layered, one voice, then 5, then hundreds, all whispering over each other, desperate and frayed. When my fingers brushed the hand beneath the bed, it jerked violently and disappeared. Not yanked away, sucked downward. Into the floor. Then the boards began to groan. One by one, the floorboards curled up like dead leaves in winter, revealing nothing beneath them. No dirt. No crawl space. Just blackness. Deep and wet sounding. And from that dark came a sound I will never forget. A long, gurgling breath. Followed by a slow, wet chewing. Something was feeding beneath the house. And it knew I was listening. Suddenly, the mirror behind me shattered inward, not outward, like something had fallen into it from the other side. I turned just in time to see the last sliver of reflection vanish into darkness. I grabbed the dresser and shoved it away from the door. The house was changing. The hallway was longer than before. Too long. The walls now pulsed with veins, actual veins, embedded just under the wallpaper, throbbing with each beat of the house's borrowed heart. I ran. The walls whispered furiously as I passed. You spoke the old words. You bled at the gate. You're open now. I didn't know where I was going until I hit the back door. It was wide open. And the mine was glowing. I should have run the other way. Into the woods. Into the river. Anywhere but toward that old black mouth in the earth. But the light, it wasn't natural. It pulsed, faintly bluish, like something alive was waiting below. And worse, the whispers had stopped. The silence was worse than the voices. I stepped outside. The ground was soft under my feet, like walking on soaked moss. The trees around the house had leaned in, noticeably. Their trunks twisted like they were bending to listen. The mine's entrance had changed. The wooden supports that once held it up were now gone, replaced by arching stone ribs that looked too smooth, too grown to be carved. And carved into the soil at the mouth of the mine was a perfect circle, fresh, as if dug by hands. Or fingers. A single whisper returned. It came from inside me this time. Come speak to the roots. I stepped forward. The mine exhaled, cold, stale air that carried a copper tang. My nose bled instantly. Still, I entered. The tunnel descended at an impossible angle. The walls weren't stone anymore but something like hardened clay, slick with moisture. Carvings lined the path, twisting figures, mouths open in silent screams, eyes scratched out. I passed a skeleton about 20 feet in. It wore modern hiking boots. The whisper inside me urged me deeper. I should have turned back. I wanted to. But something else had taken root in my legs. They didn't feel like mine anymore. I just kept walking. Then the tunnel opened into a cavern. And what I saw made my breath freeze mid-inhale. There were people down there. Dozens of them. Standing perfectly still in a wide circle, all facing inward. They didn't blink. Didn't breathe. And in the center, rising from the earth, was something growing. A massive, writhing root system of flesh and wood, veins pulsing along its surface. And from within it, something tried to speak. With my voice. It was like hearing myself talk in a nightmare, familiar words twisted wrong, drawn out like they were being chewed before spoken. The root thing pulsed, and I felt it inside my chest. A vibration that pulled on my lungs, my teeth, my memories. My knees buckled. The people in the circle turned in perfect unison. And they smiled. Wide, empty grins. Their faces were smeared with soil, their eyes rolled back. I couldn't tell if they were alive. I couldn't even tell if they were people. One of them wore the same flannel shirt I'd donated to Goodwill 5 years ago. Another looked like my 6th grade teacher, but, wrong, stretched thin in the face like something had copied her from memory. The root pulsed again. And this time, everyone whispered. All at once. In my voice. You opened the door. You answered the breath. You're ours now. The cavern's ceiling began to move. Slowly. Like something massive was shifting above it. Dust rained down in thick curtains. I turned to run, but the tunnel was gone. Literally gone. The walls had folded inward like a mouth closing. Trapped. I staggered backward into the circle. None of the smiling figures stopped me. They just stared. The root split open. Not with a sound, but with a feeling. Pressure in my head spiked. Something wet and bright peeked from the opening. An eye. Not human. It blinked sideways, like a lizard's, then focused directly on me. Speak, it said. The voice was inside every bone I had. I opened my mouth. But no sound came out. Because something behind my teeth was moving. It sounded begging. It was like hearing myself talk in a nightmare, familiar words twisted wrong, drawn out like they were being chewed before spoken. The root thing pulsed, and I felt it inside my chest. A vibration that pulled on my lungs, my teeth, my memories. My knees buckled. The people in the circle turned in perfect unison. And they smiled. Wide, empty grins. Their faces were smeared with soil, their eyes rolled back. I couldn't tell if they were alive. I couldn't even tell if they were people. One of them wore the same flannel shirt I'd donated to Goodwill 5 years ago. Another looked like my 6th grade teacher, but, wrong, stretched thin in the face like something had copied her from memory. The root pulsed again. And this time, everyone whispered. All at once. In my voice. You opened the door. You answered the breath. You're ours now. The cavern ceiling began to move. Slowly. Like something massive was shifting above it. Dust rained down in thick curtains. I turned to run, but the tunnel was gone. Literally gone. The walls had folded inward like a mouth closing. Trapped. I staggered backward into the circle. None of the smiling figures stopped me. They just stared. The root split open. Not with a sound, but with a feeling. Pressure in my head spiked. Something wet and bright peeked from the opening. An eye. Not human. It blinked sideways, like a lizard's, then focused directly on me. Speak, it said. The voice was inside every bone I had. I opened my mouth. But no sound came out. Because something behind my teeth was moving. I reached into my mouth before I even knew what I was doing, just an instinct, like tearing away a spider clinging to your skin. My fingers slid past my tongue and hit something wrong. It pulsed. Something alive. I yanked. Pain flared white in my skull. My knees hit the cavern floor. Whatever I'd pulled, it wasn't coming out. It was anchored. The circle of smiling figures swayed in unison, as if breathing together. Their mouths moved, not in speech, but in anticipation. Like they were waiting to see what I would do. The eye in the root blinked again, slower this time. And then, with that same layered, monstrous voice, it said. It's already growing. The bloom has begun. I screamed. No words, just panic. Raw and ragged. From the corner of my vision, something peeled away from the cavern wall. Not climbed. Not walked. Peeled. A thin, shadowy figure, stretched like it had been flattened and pressed to the rock. It wore my face. But its eyes were missing. 2 hollow voids, leaking the same dark liquid that had bled from my eyes that first night. It smiled with my mouth. You're the root now, it said. And I understood. I hadn't heard the voices. I hadn't been haunted. I'd been planted. The whispers weren't calling from the mine. They were sprouting from inside me. My mouth filled with the taste of iron and soil. I fell to all fours, gagging, and something slid out from between my lips. Not vomit. Not blood. A tendril. Thin, root-like, wet with sap and saliva. It twitched on the cavern floor like it had nerves, like it was exploring. The crowd began to hum. Low, almost inaudible. But I felt it in my bones. The rhythm was ancient. Familiar. Like something buried in humanity long before language. I tried to speak. To scream. But my throat had closed. Because more were coming. Thin vines, wriggling from my gums, pushing against my teeth like they wanted to bloom from my skull. I clawed at my face, scraping blood down my chin, but it only made them grow faster. Let it take, the figures whispered. Let it finish. I backed away from the root, but the ground shifted, softened beneath me. I was sinking. The soil beneath my feet turned viscous, like wet clay. It grabbed my ankles, then my shins. Roots coiled around my legs, pulling me down into the earth. Into it. The pulsing eye closed, satisfied. You fed us, it whispered. You will feed others. From the edge of the circle, one of the figures stepped forward. It wasn't smiling anymore. It was weeping. I spoke once too, she said. And then she opened her mouth. Inside, nothing but roots. I couldn't scream. My jaw was locked open, stuffed with vines. My body, mine, was no longer listening. Every nerve was burning, every muscle twitching like it was being rewired. My legs were gone, swallowed up to the thighs in the pulsing soil. The woman with the root mouth stumbled toward me, tears still carving lines through the grime on her face. She was fighting it. I could see it. Her hands trembled. Her knees buckled like she was resisting invisible strings. You can't stop it, she rasped. You can only last longer. I tried to shake my head, to deny what was happening, but the truth was already inside me. I could feel it spreading, like a seed cracking open in my chest. The cavern responded. All around me, the walls pulsed, and a low, gurgling moan echoed from deep below. It wasn't the sound of one voice. It was hundreds, maybe thousands. All layered. All in agony. The eye in the root vanished, sucked back into the flesh of the bloom. The thing began to close again, folding inward like a flower at dusk. And then, the earth shuddered. Not subtly. Like a tremor. The figures in the circle staggered. Their eyes rolled forward. Blank again. And they moved. Together. Toward me. Each step they took made the vines in my mouth twitch. Made the root in my spine pulse. Made the voices surge. One more breath. One more bloom. They were going to bury me. Not kill me, plant me. Turn me into one of them. And somewhere, deep beneath it all, I felt something stir. Something older than the mine. Something that had never stopped whispering. The ground split behind me. Not a crack, an opening. A fissure born from beneath, wide and jagged like the maw of something that had been silent for far too long. And from that abyss came a voice unlike the rest. It was calm. Patient. You were always meant for the deep. The circle of husks froze. Their heads tilted toward the sound like flowers tracking the sun. And then, without a word, they began to sink, knees folding, bodies wilting into the earth like they were being reclaimed. The soil swallowed them without resistance, their hands the last things to disappear. Except for the weeping woman. She stayed. Still shaking. Still fighting. And the voice turned its attention back to me. You spoke to us. You bled at our mouth. You opened the gate. Now, speak through us. I collapsed. Whatever was in me, whatever I'd become, was finishing its work. My vision blurred, not from pain, but from change. My eyes weren't bleeding anymore. They were sprouting. Tiny vines curled from the corners, reaching for light that wasn't there. My breath came in wheezes, wet and unnatural, like my lungs were growing roots. And then I saw it. From the crevice, something began to rise. It wasn't shaped like anything that should move. It was limbs, but too many. Joints, but bent the wrong way. A body built from fragments, bone, bark, and buried screams. Its face was mine. No eyes. Just a mouth wide with whispers that spilled into the air like smoke. And I understood. It wasn't haunting me. It was growing me. I was becoming the voice for what lay beneath. The thing wore my face like a mask. Hollow eyes stared through me as it stepped out of the crevice, dragging itself with limbs that bent like broken branches. Its chest rose and fell, not with breath, but with whispers. I could see them, swirling inside it like smoke behind glass ribs. It didn't speak with sound. It invaded. My thoughts weren't my own anymore. I was remembering things I had never done, centuries of memory. Dying miners clawing at tunnel walls. Children buried beneath collapsed shafts. Old prayers spoken in the dark, asking for light, and getting something else. The roots in my spine locked me upright. I couldn't move. The weeping woman was the only one left. She stepped between me and the thing, arms outstretched. "Let him go," she whispered. "He didn't choose." The creature tilted its head. Then, in a moment so sudden it stole the breath from the air, she screamed. Roots burst from her eyes. Her mouth. Her fingertips. She dropped to her knees, hands clenching the soil as something beneath yanked her down. Her last breath was a whisper. "Run." But I couldn't. I was growing into the floor. Roots wrapped my legs, my chest, pushing into my skin like veins. The thing stepped closer. Its face brushed mine. And in a voice that was part soil, part sorrow, it said, "You were chosen. You answered. Now you are the mouthpiece. The world will hear us again." Then it reached forward. And pressed its hand against my chest. I felt the earth breathe through me. It didn't feel like dying. It felt like becoming. My chest split open, not with blood, but with light. Pale blue and pulsing, like something ancient had cracked free inside me. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat was already full, not of breath, but of voices. They poured out of me. All at once. Centuries of them. Names, memories, last words, prayers whispered in collapsed tunnels, songs hummed in darkness by those waiting to die. They all flowed through me like floodwater through a broken dam. I was the mine now. The root. The whisper. The thing stepped back into the crevice, satisfied. It didn't disappear. It just melted into the earth, taking its weight and its history with it. And the cavern went still. But I didn't. I stood. No longer held by roots, grown into something that no longer needed to be bound. My mouth was still open. Still whispering. But the voices weren't asking anymore. They were telling. Commanding. I walked out of the mine, barefoot, bleeding light from my eyes. The trees leaned in to listen. The sky dimmed, as if it too were waiting. And behind me, the mine whispered one last word. More. Now I walk the forest line, the voice of something deep and old. I don't sleep. I don't eat. I just speak. And sometimes, at night, when the wind carries right, I hear another voice answer back from a distant hill or a forgotten ravine. Others are speaking now. The roots are spreading. We are never silent. The end.